Hello, welcome to the Jewellery Maker Academy. I'm Alison Tarry and today we're going to be making a Wirework plaited woven bracelet. These are great to wear, they're very articulated. What do you need to get started? We've got some 1mm wire and some 0.4 wire. In the examples they're all the same colour. This I've done so you've got a contrast, but it all works. You also need a focal, so it can be a double drill gemstone, it could be 2 beads. For this example we're going to be doing the donut. Then you're going to need a baling pliers or something similar, some similar mandrel, a pair of cutters. If you can do flush cutters, they'll get into the nooks better, but you can still work with your side cutters. A round nose pliers, a chain nose pliers and a flat nose pliers. And that's all you're going to need. So let's get started and move on to chapter 1. So in this chapter, we're going to be doing a 4 and 2 weave. It's a very, very versatile weave. It is what it says on the tin. You want 2 cores, which is the 1mm wire. And then we're going to wrap all the way round for one of the wires, and then the other one, we do 4 and then 2 round both. So for each of the sections we've got of the woven sections, we're going to be having 17 centimetres of core wire. So for this one we've got 2 cores, both 17 centimetres wide, and then we're going to be using 0.4 wire to be, and I try and, if I can, I'll work off the reel because it's less wastage. Because if you cut so much, you're not going to know exactly how much you want. So I tend to work directly off the reel, and I tend to kind of start somewhere in the middle, because if you're starting at one end, then it makes it a lot more difficult to do it. If you're not, you're starting in the middle. We're going to tweak out the top 2 wires just to make it, because these are going to be folded over. So you can do that, and then that just makes it easier for your weaving wire to go in. So the 4 and 2 wire weave is what we'd call a reversible. So if you look at the weave, it's the same on the front and the back. So it kind of doesn't matter which way round it goes. It's a very easy weave to use, a very, very versatile weave. So how do we do it? We're going to start off with 1, and we're going to wrap 4 times around our mandrel. So you want 4 weaves. If you can keep them neat, then that's great. As you're weaving, when you're doing single weaves around a single wire, you're almost overshooting. So your wire is almost crossing and then slides down beside it. Don't exaggerate quite as much as that, but you want to keep it as close as you can. And you'll see me every now and then, I'll do that to push it up. If you leave it till the end, if you've wrapped it loosely and you leave it till the end, when you push it together, it will be all different sizes. Your loops will be all different sizes. If you want a random organic weave, then that's great. But if you want the neat weave, then you need to practice your tension. And it's just a nice, simple tension. You want it, you're not pulling, you shouldn't be seeing the whites of your fingers, but you don't want it slack. You want to have that connection. Now when you put the second one on, we've got 4 weaves already there, so it's forming a gap between your 2 wires. You'll need that. You do 2 wraps around, so when you do the second weave, don't pull these so that they're tight together, because you're then going to go between those 2, and you'll see I now push it down. If you don't push it down straight away, and you've pulled those 2 together too tight, you won't be able to get that up enough. So to keep that, maintain that gap, it's a 0.4mm gap. How do I know? Because the 0.4mm wire goes in it. It's usually about a nail's width. So if you've got a fingernail, it usually fits in there. So we've done our 4 wraps. We've done our 2 wraps around both. We're now going to do 4 wraps round at the single one. We've started with 1. So we've got 1, 2. You see how I push it down as I go? 3, 4. Depends on the type of wire you've got. Some wire is softer than others. This is not a soft wire, so it's a little bit harder, you have to push it a bit more, but they're all called soft wires, but you will find some variance within that. So do keep pushing them up. Don't wait till you've done the whole thing to push them up, because it will be difficult. And if you need to reposition that, you've got to do it straight away, because once you've got lots of single wraps around there, it's nigh on impossible to move it. It grips it too tight. So again, we've done our 4 single wraps. We're going to do our 2 around the 2, and then I go straight away between them, and that's when I pull those tight. So to get the tension on there, go between them before you push it, you pull it, and then you're back to doing your 4. So that's 2, 3, 4, 2, and you start getting a really nice rhythm going. And it just takes a bit of practice. So if you find, like there, can you see how that one's jutting out a little bit and it looks untidy? If you get the odd one like that, just go back, pull it tight and carry on. So you're going to do that all the way along the length until you've got to within about 2 centimeters of the end. And then with this weave, you can just turn it around, and then using the wire that's still attached to the reel, you can just carry on. You've done your 4, then you're going to do 2, and if you want, just tweak those out that side and then carry on with your 4. So you keep doing with that until you've got your length with a couple of centimeters at each end. Leave yourself, I don't know, a decent length, 4 inches, 10 centimeters, something like that at each end, and then you can trim off your wire. You're then going to put this to one side. We're going to do all the weaving first, and then we plait them. Now with these, I do want to say, you can use these in different ways. So each of the 3 parts of the plait, it's a simple three-part plait. Each of them is made up of 4 cores. This has only got 2 on. Now you can double this up if you want, and if we have a look at the gunmetal one, if I turn that round, you'll see I've got 2 lots of the, let me pull this over onto the overhead. So on here we've got the 4 and 2, we've got 2 lots of the 4 and 2, and I've just stranded on some 0.4 wire a piece of just a line of beads between, so you get sort of the river running between the 4 and 2. So that gives you a nice, so that's still got our 4 cores involved. We're going to do another 2 core so in the next chapter, and that's where we've got the channel set and then the 4 and 2. So there are different ways of using this. You can use both of those, just keep them together. If you're going to do that, I'd do them back to back, so I'd put them sort of so they were the consistent round to the consistent single core, rather than have them like that. But that's personal taste. You can have them facing the other way if you like. So just keep that in mind. For now, we're going to do one of those, and then we're going to, for each side, and then we're going to place it to one side and come back to it. And in the meantime, we're going to go on to the next chapter. So in this chapter, we're going to channel set the beads. So this is another 2 core, which is going to go with our 4 and 2. So when we're channel setting them, I'm using a 2mm bead here. You can use a 2 or a 3mm. As you can see on this background, that's quite difficult to see. So what you might do, depending on your beads, you might change your background just to make it easier for you to actually see where they are and pick them up easier. For the demo, I've actually got some different coloured beads which make it a lot clearer for you to be able to see. I didn't want it to detract from you seeing it. So we're going to start off. Now with this, I tend to I start in the middle, but I move it. So I would load all of your beads. So just measure how, you won't use them all because each one of these does not, it spaces out. But if you put on enough to cover that space that you want, so it's the 17 centimeters minus 4, so your 13 centimetres of beads on there. If you preload them, then it makes life easier. But we can slide these very easily. So we're going to start off somewhere in the middle with one of your cores, and you're going to wrap twice around, and then you're going to fetch in your other core, and we're going to slide that bead down and go through. So we're doing a figure of 8 weave, and we're channel setting at the same time. So we're going to slide that bead down, but we've gone through the bottom, and then we're going to go all the way around that one and around again. The reason you do 2 loops is it anchors those 2 cores into that position. So if you wanted to do a changer, or if you wanted to vary the spacing or anything, you can do it, but once it's open, it locks it there. It won't move. So sometimes if you do a figure of 8, this varies, it'll change size. This will lock it in place. That's less important for when you're doing the bead, the channel setting, and more important for when you're doing a straight figure of 8. So I've tweaked my 2 ends again, just to give you that opening, which will come together. So you've done your 2 wraps around that side, slide your bead down, fetch it parallel, and then you're going to do your 2 wraps. And you can be quite, get your tension quite well. You don't have to worry, you're not putting anything in between. Slide your beads down. Invariably, you'll not keep hold of them for long. So you go through there, round again, slide the next one down, and you carry on going till you've got a fair amount on. So I would say almost go to the end, because what you're then going to do, I'll do a couple more, because what you're then going to do is we're going to slide this to the other end and then carry on weaving. So rather than start to the middle and then thread your beads onto this side, we've preloaded them all, and then I'm just going to pull those wires through, so that now magically your woven section is now towards the end. So if you've done halfway, then you're here, and then you're just carrying on with that half. It just makes it a lot easier to do. And as you can see, I don't know whether you can see because it's crossing, but they're now a lot further. Let me pull those down, and you'll see they're a lot more spaced than they are when they're just on here. So that's how you use less. But you keep going with that until, like I say, you get to the point where you've got your couple of centimetres either side. Again, just leave your tail of wire. You're leaving the tail because A, you might need to add more depending on whether you've made it slightly small or slightly long, and B, it just gives you something to get hold of. So it allows you to add more on, and it makes it easier to take it off because you've got something to get hold of. So that's how you do your channel set weave. Great for rings, great for a bracelet, but in the weaving it's absolutely fabulous. So now we're going to go on to the next chapter. So in this chapter, we're going to look at a zigzag weave. This is a 4-core weave. So previously we've done 2 2-core weaves. So we're going to have 4 cores, and we're literally going to zigzag our weave up and down. So here's our section that we've already done. Now we've talked before about reversible weaves. This one isn't reversible. It's fine to see the back. What I would say is you can use either side. They're just a different pattern. So in your bangle, what I would say is have the same. If you're going to use the back, have that side on both of them. If you're going to use the front, have that side. I would want them consistent on my bangle. So again, I'm going to be using the wire off the reel. Let me just pull some out. So I'm going to start off with it on my left. And I'm going to start off in the middle. So for this one, we're going to be doing, basically going up 2, then we're going to go up the middle 2, and then we're going to go to the top 2. And we're going to go up and down, doing 2 wraps at a time. So the difference is going to come on the back, but I'll show you that as we go. So we're going to start off, I'm going to put a wrap around that first one. And this gives us that spacing. It gives you that 0.4 spacing that you want. If you don't have that there straight away, your first double wrap will try and close those two down, and then that becomes very difficult to get in. If you can't get between and up close, then you get a very open, more organic weave. It's very difficult to keep that precision. So we're going to go twice around the two cores. So I'm going to call them 1 and 2. We're going to go twice around 1 and 2, going in a clockwise direction. And then we're going to come between 1 and 2, and then I'll pull it tight. So we've got the original wire going back to the reel, then we've got 2 wraps around the 2, and then we've come in front of the wire between the 2 cores. We're going to introduce the next core, so this is core 3. We're now going to go twice around core 2 and core 3. So if you want to make it easier, if you find your cores move around, which they do, you can use a low tack masking tape on this side to hold them in place when you've got all 4, or alternatively use a ring setting mandrel or a protected not pliers, a protected vise. By that I mean you don't want a metal vise because you'll mark your wire. So if it's got a piece of leather in there, or a good piece of cloth, some felt that will protect it but hold it in place. But if you've got a ring setting mandrel, they clamp up and give you something good to hold on to. They're great if you have dexterity issues as well. So we're going twice round 2 and 3, and then we're going to come between 2 and 3. The other thing you can do is put a little piece of masking tape with 1, 2, 3 and then 4 on the other one, and then that helps you identify them if they do move. So we've gone around 2 and through the middle, add your next core in, which is your last core, and you can go around the top 2, which is 3 and 4. You're not coming through the middle, so you're just going to go around 3 and 4. Squizzy them up. This is a weave that you can move around afterwards, so you can start here, but then I would still turn it around, but you can start in the middle and shuffle it if you want, because it will never get that tight because you're doing 2 wraps at a time, so you'll always be able to move your cores. So now we're going to come back down the line and create the other part of our zigzag. We've gone twice round the top 2. We're actually going to now come down to between 1 and 2. So if we come down there, so your wire at the back has moved 3. It's gone up 1, up 2, and we're down 3. So this is why it doesn't look the same at the back, because you have this big long drop. And then you're going to wrap around 2 and 3. Okay, so it looks identical to on the way up from the front, but it looks different on the way back down. So we're just going to squidge those up, and then we're coming down underneath 1 and wrapping round 1 and 2 together. So keep pushing it along with my thumb. Every now and then, if you haven't got any nails or whatever, you can use pliers. So we're now at the bottom. We can now come between 1 and 2. So that's our full sequence. We're going to go through that again, but you can see now that the wires are a little bit more stable. They will still shuffle around. You can splay them, but they tend to move more. But splay them and that's why I start at the middle, because again, if you hold them at the end, they will squirm all over the place. So going up, we've got our 1 and 2 wrap, and we've come between 1 and 2. We're going to wrap round 2 and 3. So twice round 2 and 3, and then come between 2 and 3. So at the back, that's only got a short one. So we've got a long one and then a short one at the back, wraps. So then we're going to go around 3 and 4 twice, and then we're going to drop round to between 1 and 2 again. So that's where you've got your 3 going down the back. But don't pay much heed to what's going on at the back. The only time you want to worry about the back is when you're actually putting the piece together to know that you've got the same side. And when I've done a little bit more, I'll hopefully be able to show you with the 2 sides together. So I've gone round the bottom, and then I'm going to go around 1 and 2 on its own. So that's your sequence. You're going up 2 at a time, down 2 at a time. You can come between, but it starts swapping the way of the wire. I like it doing this way. You're constantly going in the same clockwise motion all the time. You're not changing direction. It's what I call a loop-de-loop. You're just going around the same loop, the same motion. So your hand gets very easily into that repetitive motion. You're just switching which 2 you're going round, but it's always the same way round. So if I turn this one over and put it next to that one, I'm hoping you can see the difference. This is a very even wire, 2, 2, 2, 2, 2, 2. This one, can you see here, you get a longer, it almost looks like that's a continuous and then you get a little bit, that's continuous. So it's not wrong to have it that side, it's a different pattern. So it's not the same front and back. So when you've done halfway with this one, you can't just turn it over like that and carry on weaving. You have to actually turn it like that. So you're turning it horizontally rather than just flipping it over. And then you'll have to take that first one, which we created our space with. We're now effectively at the top coming down. So 1 is now at the top and 4 is now closest to you. And then you're going to come down between 3 and 4 and then carry on wrapping. So it's exactly the same motion, you've just flipped it on its head. So it's just up to 2 by 2 going up and then 2 by 2 coming down, but you're coming below to do the 2, below to do the 2. And then you just carry on going again for this one. You're going to do it within a couple of centimetres of the end, and then you're quite happy finishing there. So then we get to this point, we only need one of these for each side. You don't need to have double of these. So this is your 4-core piece. So we're going to put this one to the one side now, and then we're going to go on to the next chapter. In this chapter, we're going to look at the elongated zigzag. So if you look at them together, you'll see what I mean. So this one is the one we've just done. It's up, down, up, down, up, down, up, down. This one is very much stretched out. So it gives you a different texture, a different look to it. And it just makes when you start wrapping them, when you start plaiting them, and pulling it all together, it gives you that different texture, it gives you those different looks and feels, and that's all what builds into this interesting bangle. So we're going to put that one to one side and we're going to concentrate on that one. It's another 4-core weave, so this is our last weave to complete our 3 sets, and I can see you thinking we've got 4 different weaves, but 2 of those are 2 cores and they will go together. So this is our 3rd part of our plait, which is another 4-core weave. You can start in the middle like the other zigzag. There is a front and a back to this, it's not reversible. So you get 3, 3, 3 wraps going down one side and then 1, 1, 1 on the other side. So it is a slightly different pattern on the back to the front. Both are valid, it doesn't really matter which you prefer. This is the traditional front of it, but it doesn't matter. It's so long as you're consistent. So again, I'm going to take it from the reel. Start in the middle. You can move this, but I wouldn't recommend trying to move it all to the side. So do be prepared to flip it round. So again, we're going to have 1, 2, 3 and 4 for our cores. And we're going to start on the bottom on 1. And we're going to wrap 4 times around our single core. So this is almost a combination of the 4 and 2, but we're zigzagging it. So this is where you start to build on your repertoire of your weaves, and we're starting to combine things now. So to get this different feel, we're going to add the next one in, and what we're going to do is go twice round the 2 cores and come through the middle. Okay. However, when we've come through the middle of this one, we're now going to do 4 times around that single wire. Let me bend that one, make sure it stays that side. So 1, 2, 3, 4. Now I've finished coming round underneath the bottom. So you've got 4 wraps, 2 double wraps, 4 wraps. So we're going to do another, add in our next core, add in 3. So we're now going to do 2 wraps around these 2. So if you think of the original zigzag, we did 2, 2, 2, 2, but this time we're sliding that 4 single wraps in between to elongate it. So we're going to add in, I'm going to make that quite exaggerated, 1, 2, and then again you can splay these out. They will keep moving, but you can splay them out. So we now want 4 single wraps, 1, 2, 3, 4. If in doubt, give it a quick count. Yeah, I had done one too many. Just whiz that off. Will you notice it? I get asked this a lot. You'll not notice one. Possibly not. Nobody else is going to notice it. It would be drawn, my eye would be drawn to it. So it's personal taste. Could you leave that? Absolutely you could, and probably nobody else would notice it. So it's down to you. If you don't want to take that one off, don't worry about it. So we're going to add our next core in, our 4th core, and we're going to go twice round those 2. Now this time, instead of coming down, we're just going to do our 4 wraps around that top one only. 3, 4. Now we're going to come down, but we're going to come down, so we're going to do exactly the same pattern coming down as we've done coming up. So we're going to do 2 round the top 2, and then we're going to do round the single wraps. So in some ways it's a lot easier to get the hang of, because you're always doing this. There's no going down 3 times. You're always doing this single wrap between them. 3. It's slower to do but quicker to build up, if that makes sense, because it takes your time doing the 4 wraps, but because it's so spread out, you've got a lot of wire that you've not actually woven in. So it actually makes it quite a quick weave to do compared to the other zigzag weave. So I'll carry on doing this one. We've gone our 4 wraps round, then we want to go twice round the 2. And then we're going to go 4 times around core number 2. Making sure you're going round the right one, because you can see how these cross over. It is very easy for them to get mistaken, and you'll soon know as you go along if you have mistaken it. So I'm going to go twice round the bottom 2, and then 4 times to finish off the sequence around that bottom. And there you've got your zigzag, which is a lot more spread out, almost Greek key-ish. You've got that sort of stepped effect to it. Greek key or a pyramid, a ziggurat, it's got that sort of look to it. Great for doing Art Deco pieces. So you're going to again carry on going up and down, and then like the last time, you're going to turn it that way to be able to carry on. Remember, you've got your 2 there, so you're just going to start doubling and then carry on zigzagging. So don't flip it, you've got to turn it to get to the other side. So keep going until you've got your 2 centimeters from each side and your zigzag in the middle. And that is our 4th piece for our plait. So now we're going to go on to the next chapter. So in this chapter, we're going to actually build the 2 sides of the bracelet together. So this is what you're aiming for. You've got the curved bracelet and you've plaited your sections together. We'll then, in the next chapter, look at finishing it off. The size of it you want will depend. It will depend on your focal piece there. You need to know you remove that from the length you want, and your clasp you remove from the length you want. And then that is the length of the plait that you're going to create. So the length you've got will do a lot bigger than this, but ideally that then sits on those sides, on each side of your hand, and then you have the focal part in the middle. And it's beautiful to wear. They really are beautiful to wear. Now, when you do these, each time you make one, you'll probably have a slight difference. So you might start them in the different order. You might end up with them with slightly different. We talked about having two of the 4 and 2 together, and then putting a gemstone line in the middle of them. You could have two. If I fetch this one over, this hasn't got the 4 and 2. It's got two channel set ones together. So you can change it up to get slight differences and have a play with them. They're great. No two ever look identical. They're the same principle, but they'll never look identical. So we're going to start putting these together. What I would say is when you start plaiting them, you want them in the same order. So for this plait, I've started off with them in this order. Now, when you plait them, you're going to sort of plait to the end, and then you'll come back and tidy up each of the ends. So it starts off quite loose, then you'll get this section in here, you'll be able to plait tidily, and then you can go back up to this end. So don't worry too much, but this one has started off, I know that this one was at one end, this was at another end, and that was in the middle. So I'm going to just bind those together by using the weaves. I'm going to check I've got all these the correct way up, and I have. I'm going to move that wire out of there, and to bind them together, we're doing this as a temporary thing, just to hold them in place. I'm just going to catch the two end cores on the two 4s, the two 4-core weaves, and I'm just going to wrap those together. You only need 3 or 4 wraps just to hold them into place. Get that in there, come on. There we go. Put it between them, and that will lock it into place. So that will hold those together at the top. It's not permanent, but it will hold them together. Next, I'm going to put my 4 and 2. Is that what I started with? On there. Normally you would be doing this all at the same time. So when you've done all of your sections, lay them out together, and then you'll definitely get them in the right way. You may fancy the random approach. There's no hard and fast rule. But what I would do is do this part with both of them, and then you've got them the same if that's what you're looking for. So we're going to get the last one there attached on. Okay. So when you're plaiting, it's exactly the same. If you've ever plaited hair, it's exactly the same as that. We're going left over middle, right over middle. So each time the middle one changes, and your left and right change, they move around. So we're going to start off and place your fingers on top. That's why I've changed the board. You'll notice I've changed the board. That's because this is a rigid board, and I can press into it and hold those. Like I say, we'll come back to the top, so I don't expect these to be as tight as the others are going to be. So you want to go over that one and under that one. So this one comes out there. Sorry, you want to go over that one, and then this one becomes the middle. These then come over the middle, and I would do the two one at a time to start off with. You see how this one's trying to twist? Get your flat nose pliers and just put it back into the right orientation. They will try and twist on you, but you can just put them back. So you're paralleling to this side one. So we're going over there, and that's coming into the middle. We're going to take this one, and again, fetch it around. So see how these are moving? Don't worry, because this end we're going to go back to. So you're going to cross that one over, then we're going to come over with this one. Again, put your hand on to stop it. So you can now see that plait. It takes a go. This always moves, but it takes a go, but then you start really getting into it. Pick it up, twist it, keep it flat, and twist them to there. The reason why you don't fetch it straight down the middle is A, because you want it to be to the outside so you can get that one now to come into the middle. It's not like hair. Hold that one and pull it tight. So you're using your fingers to stop that twisting by pushing down and keeping those cores flat to each other. If you have dexterity issues, like I said, do it with 0.8, you'll find it easier. It's slightly less structural, but it is still perfectly valid and wearable, but easier to manipulate. This will be quite a rigid piece of jewellery when you've finished it. So we've got that far. I'm just going to give it a slight curve as it's there, just to hold those now in place. So now I can lift it up and I can keep these out of the way. It almost becomes a bit easier. Try it. You might find it easier to keep it flat. I quite like picking it up because I can get it a lot tighter when I do that. So we're now coming to the end of our weave sections. I'm going to turn round, and this is where you can now tighten up. See how I'm pushing that together? So you can tighten up these sections and you can almost undo this end. So we're going to take those binding wires off so that we can now position these even better. So I now know this is going to be too long. You can actually shortcut and trim those off if you want. There we go. We'll do that one and we'll trim that one because we know these are going to be too long as they are. So now those are separate again. Move our little bits out of the way and we can push this. That one's come over there and that one's gone under there. So what I've done is I've turned this over. There we go. That's why I was trying to go underneath and not over the top. Again, like a normal plait, both are valid ways of doing it. It makes no difference so long as you're consistent. You'll just find that you're trying to wrap it underneath rather than over the top. Go through there. So this is the fiddliest bit. And what you want to do is make sure that you've got the same length as you wanted before. So there's your length finished. Now that is a lot longer than that one. So going from here, so from the top to the first join, we're then just going to roughly measure that. So we want to finish at about there. Okay, so we know now where we're going to go. So finishing it, I use the natural places of the wire. So by that I mean I'm going to bend that one and it will be different. So I'm going to show you how to do it, but you won't necessarily follow exactly the one. So what you're trying to do is go over a wire. So you may start with that one bending over, but that one has nowhere to go. So I'm going to actually start with that one and I'm going to bend all the way over, so you're bending it back on itself. Now when I say it's got nowhere to go, this one now can fold over that one. So they kind of fold in over themselves. So that one's gone over that one. You want to remove any weaves so that it doesn't show too much. You can take that bead out, but there's only one, so I wouldn't worry. If it's easier, you can use a pliers and get a really sharp turn. That one then folds over that one. Do you see what I mean about folding over on itself? Now we want to keep this one in the center. So we're going to have, so this is effectively becoming this section. So we want to keep this one on its own. So I'm going to get rid of these weaves. So I'm going to go back to there, trim that off. If you trim back there, you should be able to pull that off in one. Keep that one out. You can then bend those a lot easier without the weave on them. And they will bend behind. So it's kind of all hidden behind and it's kind of holding each other in place. So lift that one up slightly, trim off your 0.4. This is where your flush cutters come in because they can get really close. And always, if you can, finish between the wires. By that I mean there's no wire. I wouldn't finish with it sticking up here. So this first one we can trim off. You want to trim off to within about 2 or 3 millimeters of the end. We're going to, don't try and cut them all at once, trim them off in 1 or 2s. Okay, so you've trimmed them off. Now if you try and push that straight down, what happens, and I'm going to use my fingers to demonstrate this, so if you try and push the wire down, it will always have a little bit sticking up. It will never go flat. See my fingers stick up a little bit? That happens with wire. And what happens is that top edge can be caught. So what you do is you bend over that first bit. So you only want, I mean, my fingers won't go all level, but you bend over those bits and then you bend that. So before we fasten this down, those that are going straight, I'm going to just bring in that pliers, and I literally want the end couple of millimeters to bend over. You might find it easier with the chain nose pliers, hence them saying. So can you see on there how these are now curving in? Those wires are now doing that. So when I push that down, those wires then dig into the wire behind them. Yeah? So let me hold it that way. So your wires are doing that. So when you push them down to touch this, yeah, so we can now push those onto here and the wires will dig into the wire rather than having that top edge being proud. And you can use your flat nose pliers on all of these apart from the gemstone ones to ease that down. So you're forcing those cores into a tighter join there to push that. So now you shouldn't have any roughness there. So we're going to do the same on these, but we're going to leave it slightly longer because we're going to use that to capture these. So we're going to take that one over there. So we're going to cut these off there. So we're going to trim the 0.4 off, and then we're going to trim these to the edge. You can, if you want, trim those back there and then just fold these over on themselves. I just like sort of capturing them into place by the other wires. So again, we're going to tip the ends over. Like I say, it only needs to be a couple of millimeters tipped over, just so that the ends aren't poking up. And then I'm going to carefully, because this has got the gemstones on, I can't sort of just go squish because you'll crush the gemstones. So you're pushing those down, and then you're going to do the last 3, trim those off, bend those over, and this one we can squidge down. And you can see that they're not sticking up, so they're all kind of folded over on themselves. You get this funny width. If you want to leave the beads on there, you can. You can leave the woven on the back. It just makes it bulkier. That's why I've cut it off. And then you've got your single wire there, ready to put your loop on. You can either make a bigger loop and make that into your clasp. So that becomes your hook. And because we've got a bit, oops, go on in, you can take that right back in. If you've used your 1 mil, you can just do a simple loop. So I could trim that and it will hold its shape. I kind of like having the finish of the wrap around it. It doesn't really matter. Let me just take that round, and then I'm going to pop that back in and bring that shape in. So you get your loop, and you can use that either to put a jump ring and a clasp, or you can go directly for a clasp to hook into that. So you might want a bigger loop. So make sure that that end is tucking in out of the way and you haven't got a rough bit there. So that's one end. Like I say, you'll find, depending on which way the weave lies when you do this, it will always be slightly different. So then you're going to come around to the top bit, and we'll go back to this and measure it again. So we're looking at this bit now, so we've actually come back a bit. So we're going to fold that one over there, which gives us somewhere to fold that one, because that can now fold there. However, for these, we want 2 wires sticking up for the end, and we want them quite near the middle. So choose which wires you want. So you're going to have to cut some off this, and I'm going to go in with my pliers and trim that off there. You could, if you just cut the 2, it should slide off. But it's not going to stay. All right, we're going to trim that down, and we're going to use one of the other ones as the wire while we take this off. There we go, that's now loose, there we go. So we can still, if you want, use one of those, and you will have to unwrap some of this. So it's all about, you can do it so you can add more in. I'd rather undo than try and fiddle and wrap it, because it's so much easier to unwrap than it is to add in. So we're just going to do back to there. And basically you're doing exactly the same thing on this side as you did on the other side. So when you get to that point, you want to, because this has only got a single wrap, straighten that out, slide that bead down, and then just put a couple of wraps to secure that wire before you trim that 0.4. So when you're doing the gemstone wrap, you always need to add that extra in. So we're going to take that one over the back, and we're going to leave that one out. So let's pop that one up there and bend that one back, and then I'm going to fetch that one to hide that gap over there, and I'm going to leave the outside one from there on loose. So trim those off. Slide those down. We're not going to go all the way down, so we just need to make sure we've got enough of that one, and then we can move that one out of the way and bend the other 2 back. So when we're going over the back, we've got that way going down that way, and then we're going to come over there. So you've got your 2 wires, depending on where you want them to go, whether you want them open or in. Might actually swap that one for one of the other ones to give that a little bit more space. And then trim the back as before, and then all you want to do is curve that around your wrist or your ring mandrel. And also remember, when you're doing them, and it's quite clear on this one, that they look different because of the way of the weave. If you look at those 2 ends, they kind of finish in the different way. This one narrows and this one's blunter, and the same if we turn it, that one narrows, so that if you do them, if I put them that way round, they actually look the same. So I'm not worried which one's on top, but the structure is the same, and the same that way. They both narrow, and that's purely because of the way your plait works and lies. So when you've got to the end of your plait, do double check that those are going to be matching. Because if you don't, you'll end up with it looking sort of a bit like that, which isn't the end of the world, and it still looks fine. But what you ideally want is to have those 2 matching. So that's a point to remember when you get to that point of actually pulling your wires out. You can finish your plait, decide which wires you're going to do, but do check that they synchronize up, shall we say, when you're finishing those and putting the loops on. And once you've done that, then we're ready to go and completely finish in the next chapter. So in this chapter, we're going to add the the center focus piece and the clasp onto our bracelet, and then we're finished and you're good to go. I've chosen a magnetic clasp. It can be any sort of clasp. You can make your clasp. Because we've made loops on the ends of these, we're just going to open that loop, pop on our clasp. So I don't need to put a jump ring on because it's going directly on there. And then I'm going to do the same the other side, just to open that loop, pop the clasp on. And because we've got the two tones of the metals, I've used a rose gold clasp with it. And then we just want to pop our gemstone in there. So what I've done is using my ring mandrel, I've just made a little coil on the second largest one of those, which just fits my donut. So check the sizing of your donut to make sure you get the right size. And then we're just going to snip off. We want basically four oversized jump rings. So I'm using the very tip of my pliers. What you can do is cut one side and then turn around and cut the other, or you can saw them if you want them spot on. If I was selling them, I'd use sawn jump rings, but if it's going to be for me, it doesn't matter. And then we're going to open that quite wide, pop that through, and this will give you, it's a nice open size. I quite like the fact that it's going to be oversized. And we're going to feed that through, closing that there. If you've got, I think these are about a 9mm jump ring. If you've got one of those and they fit round your donut and they're the right colour, then obviously use that, not your homemade ones. If you're using an unusual colour of wire and you haven't got any matching jump rings, then it's always best if you can match them. Right, so that's our jump rings. And then to have it in the centre just gives you that frame. So we're just going to snip that off. Whether you want to do one or two is up to you. Open that up, feed that through your jump rings. You can do them all the time, all at once like that, and then they will open out. And then on the other side, I am going to get that open. There we go. Slide that through, making sure you've got a good seal. And then all we've got to do is add each of those to our loops. Now you've noticed when I've put the loops on, I've automatically turned them that way. For this one, I'm going to want to turn them back out. So I want them going in that direction. And that depends on what centerpiece you're going to have. And then I'm going to open up each of those loops so that we can feed a jump ring through each. And we're just going to set that jump ring through there, close the loop. There should be plenty of room to be able to do this. If it won't go on easily, then open the jump ring instead. Let's pop that up. A little bit fiddly. It's a beautiful smooth donut, which doesn't make it easy to hold. So we've got that one on there. Then we're going to come around to the other side. I'm going to flip it over because that's the easiest way for me to do it. Open those two up. Make sure you've got the right one on the second side for the right side, because otherwise you'll end up with a loop in the middle that's not going to attach anywhere. That makes it easier if you undo the clasp. Close that. And then again, open that clasp up and pop the one on the other side. And there you have your finished bangle, and that will shape round whatever wrist you want to put it on. And they're so comfy to wear because of that articulation. They're really nice to wear, and they're going to be a really good seller as well. So that's our finished bangle. You've been watching the JM Academy. I'm Alison Tarry and we've been making a woven plaited bracelet. I do hope you've enjoyed watching the tutorial and I hope you have lots of fun making bracelets, and we do hope to see you here again soon.